Welcome back. The USDA is making millions of dollars available for renewable energy and fertilizer projects, and Iowa is about to get a big share of that money. Tonight, we're going to send things over to KTIV's Larry Wint, who joins us in studio with more on what's happening. Larry?
Former Iowa governor and current U.S. Secretary of Agriculture Tom Vilsack made the announcement of that funding at the annual convention of the American Farm Bureau. He says the money, more than $200 million in the projects they create, could help stem the loss of family farms and farmland. The Ag Secretary says since 1981, the U.S. has lost more than 437,000 farms and has lost more than 140 million acres of land. He adds just 7.5% of farms receive 89% of the income now. That means the remaining 11% of income is divided among the rest of the nation's farming operations. Now, 42 states, including Iowa, Nebraska, and South Dakota, are getting a share of the money. More than 80 projects in Iowa have been awarded nearly $18 million. Nebraska has 60 projects, South Dakota 10. Here's a brief look at the types of projects being funded in Iowa. Tri-State Farms near Remsen will get $250,000 to build a solar array at its livestock and grain operation. That solar array could power 82 homes, and it's expected to save about $63,000 a year. Wildridge Inc. is getting $125,000 to install a more efficient grain drying system at its farm near Primgar. It could power 17 homes and save more than $13,000 a year. The Farmers Co-op in Lamars is getting nearly $230,000. That's to install a solar array that could save $20,000 a year, and it could create enough energy to power 30 homes. Walker Brothers Roofing in Sloan is getting $39,000 to install a wind turbine. That turbine expected to save the company roughly $4,000 a year and create enough energy to power 3 homes. And Total Motors in Lamars is getting $50,000. That's to install a solar array that could save around $7,000 a year. Overall, the money will support 682 projects across the U.S., most of them aimed at creating renewable energy and reducing emissions.